Thinking about GLP-1s to help with weight loss? Go micro with Noom. You start off with a small dose of medication, then gradually increase as your body reacts. The Noom GLP-1 microdose program starts at $79 and is delivered to your door in 7 days. Start your microdose GLP-1 journey today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. Noom. Micro changes, big results. Initial 3-week subscription and 4 weeks of medication from $79 plus tax, and $179 per month plus tax for 7-week subscription thereafter. Final pricing depends on program selection.
Know someone in your life celebrating a birthday? They deserve to feel truly celebrated. That's what 1-800-Flowers has helped people do for 50 years, turning everyday gestures into meaningful moments of connection. And this April, during their 50th birthday celebration event, when you buy one bouquet, get a second bouquet 50% off. Celebrate more birthdays with our 50th birthday event all April long at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. Buy one bouquet, get a second bouquet 50% off at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast. We're fueled by the incredible clients who inspire us every day, allowing us to elevate their health and fitness journeys. On this show, you'll gain valuable insights from top professionals, hear inspiring transformation stories, and discover the knowledge and motivation to create your own best life. Let's dive in. As someone who has continuously used therapy as a way to heal and elevate my personal performance, I know wholeheartedly that you cannot always read the label when you're in the jar. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional in your corner to talk to. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide our listeners with the opportunity to work with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Receive 10% off your first month when you sign up by going to betterhelp.com/TFL. That's betterhelp.com/T as in think, F as in fitness, L as in life. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who can help.
Welcome back to the Think Fitness Life podcast. We have is it the founder or creator of LightStim?
Founder and CEO.
CEO. What my initial thought is, we're going to talk about red light therapy, but no, little different agenda. And the agenda is more about how some of these other companies aren't actually telling the truth about red light therapy. And many people, maybe including myself, have gone to red light treatments and maybe have been kind of duped. But we're going to dive into that and a lot more. We're going to welcome on from LightStim, Steve. How are we doing today?
I'm good.
We're good. We're good. Glad to have you on. And when you brought this topic up to me, it was very interesting because red light therapy and light therapy is very popular nowadays, as you well know. But you were saying there's a lot of misguidance in that industry. Let's dive into that.
There's kind of two different subjects. One would be myths that are perpetuated online that they're not necessarily duping the public on the treatments they're getting, but they're kind of being led down the wrong path. Like green LED handles hyperpigmentation. Well, there's no studies that before the industry is going to accept it, it'd have to have 20 studies on it that are there's definitely no special interest involved in doing those studies and backing those studies. And green doesn't handle hyperpigmentation any more than red or amber does. It'll help one person and it won't help the next 20. And it'll help 2 people and it won't help the next 5. No rhyme or reason to who gets results with it or not.
Gotcha. They're not getting duped, but when people go and let's say they spend a lot of money on some of these products and then they're thinking that they're getting the benefits, but in reality, they might be one of those people that don't get any benefit. Dive into that world. I know you had mentioned how you got into the red light therapy and a little bit of the science behind this. People are listening, they can get a gist if they've never heard of red light therapy, what it does, because I do think there's a lot of people that hear it and they're, I don't really know what it does. And I've heard people when I've had work with athletes and their parents are like, I got this red light thing. And then some people, they use that on horses back in the day. And I'm, clearly you haven't read the recent research because there's places for it now.
Yeah, and I guess in the most layman's terms, I could explain red light therapy is it's not a laser. Lasers have a single beam that can actually do damage, and that's what it's used for sometimes, to do certain kind of controlled damage to the surface of the skin. It's not a beam that it has a wider angle of light, and there's different wavelengths of light, or you could call them different colors. There's red, there's amber, there's infrared, which the human eye can't see, and there's blue. And all of these have a different positive effect on your cells. And that's what red light therapy is using these different wavelengths or colors of light to have a positive effect on your cells, which then there's some benefit derived from. You don't have a lot of energy, and you use some red and some amber LEDs, and your mitochondria absorbs that energy and converts that to ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, or the gasoline that actually runs your cells.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, that's the stuff they're not understanding, how light can do that. But you and I know, even from UV from the sun, sunlight can activate many processes in the skin. Red light's no different. It's the same concepts. When people are going to these infrared, red light sauna therapies, this is what they're doing. They're enhancing mitochondria, they're enhancing multiple benefits from being in contact with that red light.
But not actually in the sauna. Just to clarify that, because you mentioned sauna. An infrared sauna is actually the best kind of sauna to do, because you don't have a chance really of mold in there or anything. That's a very clean way to do a sauna. But the infrared is actually being used just to make you sweat out the toxins and drugs that have accumulated in the fatty tissue of the body over years. There's zero infrared therapeutic value. Okay. What I mean by that is infrared LEDs are going to actually reduce inflammation in the body, but an infrared sauna is not going to do that at all. The source of light is too far away. That is the one problem with LED as opposed to a laser. A laser, you can have introduce distance between the device and the skin. And sometimes that distance that's introduced is purposely that you can control the amount of damage done to the skin. But with LED, you lose power exponentially as you leave the tip of the LED bulb. Distance or lack of distance is everything to do with efficacy with LED. And in the case of a sauna that either has red lights in them or infrared, there's nothing happening light therapy ways in there at all.
Interesting, because I mean, I've done some in the past and always thought, oh, okay, this is kind of the best of both worlds, because I do love my sauna, but I didn't realize the distance of be able to penetrate the skin actually really matters when it comes to red light.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the other day when we were talking about it, some of these companies, we won't mention any names, but they have panels and they show on Instagram, social media, people standing in front of panels. Going off of that depth of light and how close you have to be, because when I used my portable unit once, I was okay, I can stand a couple feet away, but explain, because you were telling me that you really have to be really close to these to get an effect.
When we decided we were going to build an LED bed, we went to the FDA first, and I actually spoke to the assistant director of the FDA. We had developed a relationship because we didn't put anything on the market that had gone through the FDA and gotten approved, or what they call cleared. And he said, Steve, I'm going to do you a big favor. He goes, don't bother developing an LED bed, and definitely don't write the FDA a check, because you're never going to get it approved, because they don't work. And I go, what do you mean they don't work? And he goes, they're all just lighting up the skin. There's no depth of penetration. And an LED bed is supposed to be a wellness device, not necessarily an aesthetic device. You don't really care about just lighting up the skin. You need depth of penetration. And we worked with them for 6 years in getting approval on our bed and getting our bed to be effective enough to pass their test for efficacy. And one of the three big things was distance. And it got down to, if we were putting the body further away than about 3/4 of an inch, there was no possibility of depth of penetration. because LED light just loses its intensity too quickly with distance. And a tanning bed that's been converted to LED, where the top might be best case scenario, one area of your, maybe you've got a really big nose and it's only 2 inches away,
Sure.
or you got a really big belly and it's only 2 inches away, but most of the areas are going to be 5 to 9 inches away. And there's just no penetration there. And the difference is that your audience can understand this. If you're treating a 1 inch by 1 inch area of the body and you're just treating the skin, you've got no penetration, you're treating 19 million cells that basically their job has to do with the skin. If you can go down 3/4 of an inch to an inch, also in that 1 inch square, now you're treating between 400 and 600 million cells that have a wide variety of jobs in the body. Those are the cells that you really, if you're looking for wellness, those are the cells that you want to treat and get in really good shape, give them energy. They've got the energy to do their job, and they're in really good shape to do their job. It's a huge difference. And the number one thing is all about distance. There's a couple other things too that actually dictate the possibility of effectiveness in a full body device. If you hear about them, I'll gladly tell
Well,
you.
it's crazy to think that when people probably hear distance, even we're talking the sauna too, they're okay, what do I have to get closer? Not even a foot. If you're a foot away, maybe I'm a foot away from my laptop now. That's not even close. And it's like people think, oh, you have to be real close. But let's dive more into that.
Yeah, no, these pictures that you see of somebody sitting at a desk working and they've got a 1.5 foot by 1.5 foot panel propped up and you can see the red lights on them. There's nothing happening. Not even with the skin, but there's nothing happening. With the skin, you could be maybe up to 3 inches away to really get measurable benefit. We're not talking about a placebo effect or something like that, but measurable benefit. But the other two things that we learned from the FDA was for our LED bed, we knew we're having to deal with depth of penetration. And what we decided to do was build a one-sided LED bed and we made it so you were only 1/4 inch off the tip of the LED bulb. We wanted to do better than what the FDA said. Minimally, you got to be this close. All the devices that had come before the LED bed for the same exact category with the FDA, they had actually been in contact with the skin. When we had a small pain device the FDA instructions were to touch it to the skin, touch the actual thing to the skin, which was pretty much every device that ever went through that category with the FDA before this full body stuff started happening. And anyway, we knew that we would want to have LEDs that were emitting light at somewhere between 15 and 45 degrees. Everybody knows what a 45 degrees is. It's half of a 90-degree angle or half of a quarter of a 360. And that if you're much more than that in width of the angle, you were going to lose the intensity and there's no chance of penetration. What we were really surprised to find was that when we made many iterations of the LED bed before we got FDA clearance during the 6 years working with the FDA. And now we have a device that's one-sided. It's 1/4 inch off the tip of the bulb. We've got the angle of light being emitted and boom, no penetration. What happened? Well, the acrylic that was dividing your body from actually touching the LEDs was dispersing that 15 to 45 degrees out to 180 degrees, and it was just lighting up the skin again. We went, wow, this is interesting. Let's start buying a bunch of devices on the market. We bought just about everything that we could find, and everybody had this problem of their acrylic dispersing the light. We had never experienced it before because our handhelds and our panels for the face, for aesthetics, were the only devices on the market that didn't have an acrylic over the LEDs. Matter of fact, our handhelds FDA-approved instructions said to touch the LED bulbs to your skin, actually. And we started working with the 4 largest manufacturers of acrylics in the country until 2 years later, for 2 years, we're working with 4 different major manufacturers before we came up with an acrylic that actually let that light go through without dispersing it and let that angle of light go through. And now we're getting depth of penetration, which is what the FDA was looking for. The last thing was to pass their test for efficacy. And their test for efficacy is to bring the tissue temperature or your skin up to basically 104 to 111 degrees. And you might go, whoa, that's hot. Well, that's really hot as a temperature outside. But for your temperature or your skin to be that warm coming from a light, you would describe that light as the soothing, gentle, relaxing warmth that just made you fall asleep. That's not a real hot temperature for your skin. And this is where they've determined from 104 to 111 degrees or 40 to 44 degrees Celsius that benefits happen. And maybe they're happening lower and maybe they're happening higher too, but obviously not in this, what's happening in this band, or they wouldn't be using that as their test for being effective. And this took 3 years for us to solve, because the reason that nobody had ever passed that test before us. And actually, to my knowledge, nobody's ever passed it since. And the reason is your normal LED bed or panel or whatever it is that is a sheet or a layer of LEDs. They're undifferentiated. And it would be very hard to differentiate them because every body size is different and body type is different and that sort of thing. Basically, what would happen basically what happens when you lay your body on a sheet or a layer of LEDs is your torso, having the most mass, is going to heat up the easiest and hold that heat the best. It might even get too hot, but it's pretty tough to actually hit that temperature range that the FDA is looking for. But your arms and legs having way less mass, and according to Google, your arms and legs are between 58 and 68% of your total body mass. Way more than half of your body is never going to get the treatment because it requires more heat because they don't have the mass, and it requires constant heat. You can't back off because they're dissipating the heat quickly because they don't have the mass to hold on to that heat. This was, I say, a problem that took us 3 years to solve. And if you look at any picture of our LED bed, you can kind of see how we solved it. It's not a sheet or a layer of LEDs, but there's actually 30 separate modules of LEDs, each module being approximately 6 or 7 inches by maybe 9 or 10 inches long. Maybe they've got 600 LEDs in each module, something like that. But in the center of each one of those modules is a sensor that we designed. And all of this, by the way, is made in our factory in Irvine, California. And this sensor, what it does is when you lay on our bed, doesn't matter where you put your arms and legs, doesn't matter if you move them during the treatment, everybody's going to do that. In 3 seconds, they ascertain the exact temperature that whatever body part is laying on them, how much mass it has, what the temperature of it is, what the temperature of that body, of that one module is going to have to be to get that body part up to that 104 to 111 degree range and hold it there, while a computer program is running all the other 29 sensors also to bring the whole body up to this temperature that the FDA says this is where stuff happens. This is the test, and then hold it there during the treatment time. And we patented that, actually, that I know of. Nobody's come up with a different method of doing that. Our patent attorney was an ex-judge at the patent office for 20 years. He knows how to write a patent, and that's kind of what's happening in the industry as far as there's a disruption going on. These other devices are actually operating under something that the FDA did in, I think it was 2020, called the exemption. And the exemption was what we all thought the exemption was that for this type of a device that basically is this pain, the FDA calls it the pain category, but it does a lot more than just that, obviously. But everybody just thought that oh, we're no longer being regulated by the FDA. We can just put a device out on the market and not make wild claims. And we of all companies should have read that thing. I mean, we didn't utilize it. We continued to put everything through the FDA, but we should have read it just because of what about competition? What are they doing? That sort of thing. And well, one of the largest law firms in the United States, King and Spalding, they read it about 6 months ago and they wrote a white paper on it. They're out headquartered in DC. They have about 1,300 attorneys. They have a 25-year relationship with the FDA and the FTC. And basically they dissected the FDA directive. And lo and behold, it actually says in the directive that you have to qualify for the exemption. And then if you did qualify, you have to do all the same exact tests that we had to do and all the same exact tests that we had to pass. You just don't have to submit them to the FDA. You just hold them in a folder. When the FDA or the FTC walks in your place of business, you can go, look, here it is all. I dotted my I's, I crossed my T's, I followed the exemption to the letter of the law. But one of the two things that you have to do to be able to even qualify for it is that you have to have the same how do they say it? Same scientific technology as the device that has actually gotten FDA clearance, LightStim LED bed. And the FDA felt that if you had the same engineering, basically, same device electronically, then they could rest assured that it's probably safe and it's probably effective, and they don't have to worry that they let this exemption go out into the universe, basically. And none of them have actually ever been able to pass that portion of the test that we know of. There's nobody knocking off our technology, or we would and take care of that. But the problem is a lot of people think that they're getting benefits when maybe they're getting some increased blood circulation. But out of an LED bed, if you're getting depth of penetration, you should be getting a lot more benefits than just an increased blood circulation.
That's where a lot of that's why I kind of use the word duped at first, because people are, and I mean, realize that they're not cheap devices. So you look at some of these panels, I mean, you're going to be spending quite a bit of money for something, especially if you don't get the benefit that you think you're getting out of it. That can be very frustrating. People are going to go get these things because they see it on social media and top health influencers. They're using this stuff, which I'm sure when they use top quality, it works. But when you don't have the FDA, can't back some of these claims. Now, to me, it allows a lot of people to jump in the pool and be like, oh, well, we can kind of claim this and get away with it, but they might not be actually helping people's health and benefits fully. People are spending money on this, doing all this stuff, thinking, oh, I'm going to get better. I'm going to help my mitochondria. I'm going to help this. I know we talked the other day about we're going to help blood pressure, but in reality, they're not turning the needle and doing anything for their health.
That would seem to be the case. Yeah.
And you mentioned the other day with that, in April 2023, there was that was that lawsuit. Where's that?
But basically what happened
is
in April of 2023, the Federal Trade Commission put out a warning letter, and it was actually to the health and wellness industry. And paraphrasing it, they kind of said, we're pissed off. You guys are duping the public with unsubstantiated claims, and we're coming after you. And not only are we coming after you, but we've already identified, investigated, and penalized 670 companies. And I don't know how many since then. And then the class action lawsuit firms saw that and went, that's low-hanging fruit for us. We can now go after these guys in the industry, and we've got the government behind us. And they started running ads, and they are presently running ads that say, have you tried this LED mask? Have you tried this device, that device, and not got the results that you thought you were going to get, or that you were promoted to were going to get, or that you thought that you were going to get by looking at the pictures of their device and that they put up, that sort of thing. And that's, we've got that happening, and we've got the FTC involved, which is good because their job is to protect the public, actually.
And that's what we want. I didn't even realize you said there's over 600 companies. I didn't realize there were that many. I mean, I could probably think of a few off the top of my head, but that's a lot. That's a lot of red light companies.
Yeah. Oh no, not red light.
So, okay.
Health and wellness industry,
Gotcha.
670 companies as of April 23. And I don't know how many since then. They haven't put out another letter that I'm aware of, but yeah, but that's a lot. I mean, but there's thousands and thousands of companies, and hopefully they stay on this path and get to everybody.
Especially because a lot of this stuff now is just such murky water with these companies, and now you go to Amazon. I gotta unfortunately have to say it. A lot of stuff on Amazon is fake duplicates or knockoff versions that come from other countries that they're getting sold as is, and people think that they're getting similar products to what yours might do, and then in reality they might not be getting anything and just wasting money.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say starting around 2009, a lot of handheld LED devices started coming over from China and going on the shelves of prestige retailers, and they would break and they wouldn't be effective, and they didn't have FDA clearance, and it gave retailers a bad taste in their mouth, and to where they wouldn't take any LED devices for almost 6-7 years. And the same thing's occurring now in kind of on a wholesale level of devices coming over from China that really haven't been vetted properly by the FDA, and it's unfortunate because people are spending their hard-earned money for it, or either for the devices or for the treatments that of using those devices at a doctor's office or wherever it may be.
And with stuff that when they could be using different acrylics, they could be using different sort of lights that you're obviously not getting the penetration, but it's also just the quality of that stuff. If it took you guys 3 years to figure out how to do that, and there's companies just putting together LEDs with red light, that's a big difference.
Yeah, there's Christmas lights are LED lights too.
Well, because it's always, I went to one place and they had a sauna and they had different lights on the spectrum, and the chart says, okay, you can do red, green, and you clicked it on, and of course I'm thinking, oh, this is actual light therapy. Now I hear you. I don't know if it was or wasn't, because now, okay, well, what's the efficacy of some of this stuff? It opens the doors to make me ask a little bit more questions of, okay, what are some of the health claims of some of this stuff, and what is the factual accuracy of it, and what's on the market that might not be as good?
Yeah, best case scenario in the case you just talked about could be mood altering, because different colors of light can do that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's different. Okay, now we're talking visual and stuff, but it can help, but it's not what fully I think some people are getting when they go to these, let's call them therapy spas, where they have red lights and saunas and cold plunges. I can see where that murky water gets kind of, oh, okay, but it might be a placebo effect. If the person feels good, I guess, but at the end of the day, they're going there for a benefit, and if they're not actually getting what they're paying for, it's kind of wrong.
I can say that a lot of your large franchises of different types, gyms, massage, facial, they're billion-dollar companies, and they can't afford to mess around. A lot of them are public companies, actually, too. And when not public, multiple investors in the private equity firms that back some of those companies, almost across the board, they're kind of all doing their thing and really investigating before committing to an LED company. And we have definitely benefited from that, and we're grateful for that, because most of them are coming to us actually for our LED beds, our handhelds. They're retailing for us, and on our panels, because a lot of them are aesthetics or pain. We have pain panels, that sort of thing too.
Yeah, I want to dive into that a little because the reason why you got in was fascinating. You were telling me a little bit. Let's start in why you got into the red light therapy industry and business. That story fascinated me, and then we'll get into the ones for pain, the ones for more aesthetics, the differentiation between.
Are you speaking of the story about my son,
Yeah.
possibly?
Yep.
Okay. We actually we had LightStim, and we had only had handhelds and face panels at the time, and we strictly were selling to the beauty industry, spas, med spas, doctors' offices that had to do with beauty, basically, plastic
Mhm.
surgeons, that sort of thing, derms. And my son at the time was 21, and he went into the hospital to get his tonsils out because they were giving him trouble. And he was in recovery, and everything was going fine. And then about 2 or 3 hours later, all his vital signs went crazy. It just started dropping through the floor, except for his blood pressure went to 215, I think it was, over 165. He hemorrhaged. They threw him back into surgery, patched him up for the next 4 hours, kept him for 4 days, gave him back to us, said, your son has chronically high blood pressure. He's in danger of having a stroke. He could even die. You need to do something now. My wife and I are normally kind of alternative minded medicine first, but when somebody tells you your 21-year-old son could have a stroke and die, we went straight to regular medicine, put him on the drugs, which we knew one of the side effects was could make him impotent, and the blood pressure dropped 3 points. And we're okay, hell with this. We're taking him off the drugs. He was on the drugs for about 4 to 6 weeks, and we need to find some other way. And because we sell to all these docs, we kind of know everybody, and we started taking them to the best anti-aging doctors, integrative medicine doctors, naturopaths, Chinese medicine. I mean, we really explored every avenue. Nobody could find anything wrong with him. I mean, he was a 7% body fat, 21-year-old California male, picture of health, right?
That's
They
crazy.
can't find anything wrong with him, and nothing lowered his blood pressure. And my wife and I were pretty dismayed, obviously, after 6 months of trying this and worrying. And he and I were just sitting talking one day. We were in manufacturing on the weekend when we were closed, and I all of a sudden realized that he passed out every day around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is not a lazy kid. This kid who works his tail off. And when I go, Chase, you pass out every day around 2 o'clock. He goes, I know. He goes, I just have no energy left to do anything. And I go, maybe some reason your cells aren't producing enough ATP, that gasoline that actually runs your cells. And maybe if you're not producing enough of that, maybe they're unable to carry out any of these functions that they should be having on any of these protocols that any of these doctors have tried on you. I said, we should make a full body something. I didn't even know the name to call it. And we'll use wavelengths of light that we know that your mitochondria will absorb and convert to ATP. And that the bed took 6 years to perfect, working with the FDA. But in 60 days, he built an extremely crude version of that with the same wavelengths, but none of really the sophisticated engineering that the bed ended up having. And it looked like a white coffin with a straight piece of glass on top.
Huh.
If you can imagine laying naked on a straight piece of glass, it's not a comfortable thing to do. You find bones then in places that you didn't know you had bones that hurt. And they actually hurt more when he got off the bed after treatment than the treatment gave him, even though using waves that are supposed to be for pain because of laying on a straight piece of glass.
Yeah.
But he did it 3 days a week, and 2 months later, his blood pressure was 130/80. And we went, whoa, this might be a good thing. Maybe this is something that could help a lot of people. We should go talk to the FDA about it. And I kind of told you that story already about talking to the FDA. And that was how the bed came about. We had no idea it was going to cost us the millions of dollars or 6 years before we could have something that we knew worked that we could put on the market. Literally, we came within 30 days of going broke before we got the FDA clearance on the LED bed. Yeah.
That's crazy. And now is that one of these products where now you're looking at the instead of more the aesthetic, the deeper penetration of the light waves for more optimal health. Is that where you're going now? Or I know you guys are kind of doing a little bit of both still with the handhelds and
We're doing a little bit of both. Actually, our bed actually comes with one of those panels attached to it that is for anti-aging, for wrinkles, that sort of thing.
oh, that's because I was looking at it online. I just didn't know if that was more for to get the front side or if it was moving around, but now I see what it is.
No, because you flip on the bed halfway through the
Okay.
treatment. The bed lets you time, it beeps a couple of times, and it shuts off for 30 seconds, giving you time to flip over and adjust that towel. There's a towel over the body that's actually mandated by the FDA. That's help trap that heat and hold it. It doesn't just keep dissipating. And that's the amazing thing. Some of these tanning beds that have been converted to LED, they've actually got a fan running on the person because that's how tanning beds are. They have a fan running on you. That completely defeating the purpose of what the LED should be doing. But that was how we started. And then about 4 years, I thought I had the idea that it was cells didn't have enough energy. About 4 years into the 6 years of developing the bed, we met a guy named Dr. Nathan Bryan, Bryan. Everybody should look him up. He's the guy, if you ever watch television and see Super Beets commercials, or he's sprinkling a little beet powder on your food and he's talking about nitric oxide. He's probably the world authority on nitric oxide. He was part of the study that discovered nitric oxide in the mid-90s and had that company that you see the Beets commercials on it. Now he's got another company that even has a more potent nitric oxide product. Anyway, he came and visited us and tested our bed and said, your son's blood pressure coming down had nothing to do with increasing ATP. He goes, I'm just testing it, and it's showing that you're releasing trapped nitric oxide in the body. That's basically, when it's trapped, it's not doing anything for the body. But when it's released, one of the things that nitric oxide does is lower high blood pressure. And we did a study for FDA approval, which we're still working on. We've been working on this with the FDA for about 3 years. We did a study, and Dr. Nathan Bryan ran the study. It was a 3-state study. It was Texas, Virginia, and California. And it was for high blood pressure, for stage 1 and stage 2 high blood pressure. And we averaged, these stats are way better than drugs. We averaged, I think it was a 14 or 15 point drop in systolic blood pressure on an average. But people that had 160 to 180 systolic, where they are in danger of having a stroke. They dropped 30 to 40 points in just 3 treatments. 3 days, we could get them out of dangerous territory during this study. Certain protocols, like it's not just something that somebody would do at home or something like that. But we're working on that with the FDA still. We've got one more requirement they've asked us to do, and they've been really good to work with.
That's fascinating. 3 treatments. That's crazy. And how long are the treatment sessions? Are they a couple? Are they 20, 30 minutes, an hour?
Treatments to the FDA, really, they approved the bed's effective. They actually approved it for as little as 5 minutes, up to as maximum of 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But there's 2 schools of thought business-wise. A lot of businesses, their model fits having a client come in their place for an hour. And the treatment, so they're using a 40-minute treatment, and the extra 20 minutes gives the client a chance to undress, to get back dressed up again, that sort of thing. And then you clean the bed off and a new client comes in. And that's kind of half of the business model, or the people that have bought LED beds are using. The other half is really more with your franchises or businesses that are membership based. And they're doing a total of a 20-minute treatment. It's 10 minutes on each side versus 20 minutes on each side. And is it less effective? No, but it's just a cumulative thing with time. If you have a membership model and you're allowed to, you could come in theory, every day of the week that they're open and do a treatment. Personally, I'd rather go in every day of the week and get a 10-minute per side treatment versus one treatment in a week for 20 minutes per side, because it is more of a cumulative thing for your benefits.
Right. Then it becomes sort of this, they'll call them biohacks in the world. It becomes a habit of behavior. And you're like, okay, I'm doing this every single day. It's part of the routine. You're like, okay, you're getting benefits from it. So it just becomes what we do.
But two of your larger franchises that have recently approved our bed, and obviously that hasn't given time for all the franchisees to buy, but would be Massage Envy and Anytime Fitness.
Oh, wow.
But we've been approved for about almost 20 different franchises now. But those two are bigger ones that are in pretty much everybody's town, and they say their franchisee may not have had a chance yet to get an LED bed in there because it's pretty recent that we were approved, but that'll come eventually and be a very inexpensive way to get an LED bed treatment.
It's fascinating that a lot of even gyms, your traditional global gym, are starting to go into the realm of biohacking. I've seen some with the infrared saunas, regular saunas, cold plunges. Now we're talking light therapy beds, and I don't mean tanning beds converted. That's just, to me, that sounds crazy that a tanning bed gets converted, because how the tanning beds look back in the day, you crawl in and close the door and you're okay.
Yeah. I could tell you why the gyms are, the gyms have really gotten into recovery from a workout and recovery from an injury, maybe playing a sport, or maybe injured yourself actually working out by pushing it a little too hard, that sort of thing. And now pretty much all the gyms have figured out if they don't have a recovery section, they're going to be falling behind against their competition. And when you see some of the stuff that's happened in professional sports, then you can really get an idea of why these guys have gotten behind recovery. So pretty much everybody knows who Saquon Barkley is. He's a running back that used to be for the Giants and did a backwards flip over somebody about a couple months ago that everybody saw and was really amazing. Anyway, 2 years ago, he suffered a high ankle sprain. And I think there were 9 games left in the season, something like that. And they told him he was done for the season because nobody comes back from a high ankle sprain quickly. And plus, you're a running back, like that's what he's got to be in perfect shape for. And I flew him a bed to his house in New Jersey the very next day. And he did, all right, this is on a professional level. He did 3 to 4 hours a day on the LED bed. And instead of missing the last 9 games, walks back on the field 2 weeks later and sets a personal record of 206 yards. Unheard of. The newscasters, what's going on? What did he do? Nobody really knew what he did, how he came back quickly.
That's one big.
Go ahead.
Also, that's one thing where working with younger athletes and lower level college athletes, and even general pop, they hear these athletes coming back. Oh, they did this in X amount of time, because these athletes, I'm sure you're going to say, the recovery world becomes big for them. They're doing multiple things in recovery every single day, and that's allowing them to do it. And now your average person, your athletes, me and the go inside coach, they're starting to get into this. Oh, how do I help my kid? He's got this injury. I'm getting him the red light. I'm doing different protocols. I'm doing different things to help facilitate recovery and healing faster. And I think it's amazing, because the world of old school kind of medicine, or your traditional doctors, they're maybe not 100% on board with it, because it's still a little bit, they might not know the deep research and science. That's hence why we're talking about it. But then the strength coach of the trainers, myself, we're starting to get into you should this supplement, apply it with red light and do all this, do everything you can to heal yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have released a new product that we've been working on for about 2.5 years called the Recovery Loop.
Oh,
and for a consumer-sized product, best device for pain and recovery that we've ever had. My wife and I have been testing it in our home for about 6 months now. And yeah, it's the replacement of a device that we used to make called a pain belt back some years ago, that during COVID, the manufacturers of many electronic components just stopped manufacturing any components that weren't the huge volume. And we had to stop production of that device because we couldn't buy parts to make it anymore. And we've been developing this new device, I say, for about 2.5 years, and it's going to be a great device for pain and recovery.
That sounds
Having something at home,
that
not
sounds
really.
awesome. What is the loop? How does it operate? I'm just trying to think because I've had some companies reach out and they're oh, you can use this for recovery, but it's a handheld unit. And I don't honestly, I don't want to sit there and hold a unit over an area for 10 minutes. I want to be able to do something else, read and do this at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. You're 100% correct. It's about, it has these modules that are about this big, a fat iPhone kind of.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if they have 80 or 100 LEDs in them or something. I can't remember. They're very tight together, and they can hook onto. They have two ways you can hook them onto a belt. You could hook a couple on where you can do across your back, wrap it around a knee, wrap it over a shoulder. Or my wife actually and I haven't used the belt hardly at all this whole time. We've just been stuffing it in our shirt or stuffing it down the back of your pants for low back pain. If you've got any tight gym clothes on, you can stuff it in there. And it battery operated. I think it runs for 1.5 hours or maybe even a little longer than that before you need to charge it again. But that's going to be a really good device for having something at home that's very affordable and you might look out for.
Yeah, because a lot of people always looking for that next edge to recover, even if it's just some sort of muscle strain, or I won't call it a tear, but people get sore, they have chronic running injuries. I work with a lot of runners. You can do this while you're sitting there watching your favorite television show. And it doesn't take away a part of someone's day that you and I we have our routines. We have to sauna, we have to do this, but some people aren't going to want to be, I want to go stand in front of a panel for 10 minutes. I want to do both. I think you found that solution. It just sounds great. I'm looking forward to see what that thing looks like. I know we're coming up on about an hour and about 10 minutes. Anything else you want to talk about? Get out.
I think if there's anything else in the myths range that, anybody that used to be promoting online that LED is going to increase their testosterone.
Don't ruin it for me. Oh, don't ruin it for me.
There's no tests that back that up. There's nothing to back that up. No clinical studies.
So you're telling me that when people would stand in front of the panels naked, it's okay, put the red light in the privates, you're going to increase testosterone. It's okay. Nothing.
There could be, it isn't impossible that if you're in really, really good shape, and then you start doing full body LED and you're getting yourselves in really good shape, that so many things have been improved internally in your body that you do start to produce more testosterone. Right. That's definitely a possibility. But to sell somebody a device who has low testosterone, and a lot of guys would buy it for that one reason. It's just not true. It's just not good advertising. It's not honest advertising.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about it that way, where you're usually, when you think, how to increase testosterone, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do this in a multitude of ways. I'm going to lift heavy. I'm going to eat the things. I'm going to take the nutrients, add red light. I'm sure that with everything involved, you'll get the benefit. But to just go on a claim and say, hey, if you stand in front of this for 20 minutes a day, that's the only thing you do and it'll increase. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are companies out there that, I've seen it, and I've seen red light articles talk about increasing. Now, maybe through mitochondrial health increase, but you said you have to add the other routines to it. It's not just a one-stop shop. Hey, this is going to do it.
The other two things that I think I to educate people about anything flexible that's LED. The reason we came up with these pods that attach to a belt is you could wrap it around an ankle or a knee or across your back. And we didn't want to do anything flexible because for the most part, other than one company I could think of more recent, any kind of a flexible LED device has pretty much gone out of business in the last 35, 40 years. They didn't last. And the reason they didn't last is twofold. For one, although the circuit board that your LEDs are soldered to is flexible, and it's flexible. the solder joints aren't flexible, and they crack, and then you have LEDs that go out. The other thing is that you can't use LED bulbs on a flexible device, because if you had bulbs sticking up here out of this device here and you flex it this way, they're going to come together and hit, and they're going to break. You have to use what's called a surface mount LED, which is basically a little tiny computer chip. And for the most part, unless you're custom ordering them, and which would be a huge expense, and mostly they're emitting light in 180 degrees, which has zero ability to penetrate, and they're getting returned. They become unpopular also because of efficacy. That was why we went to the extreme on how can we treat an area that needs to be wrapped, where it's wrapped around without having a flexible device. There's also sanitation reasons on anything flexible. They're usually buried in some kind of neoprene or something like that. Can you actually clean that properly? Yeah.
I know anything that they try to make bend that really shouldn't bend, you're like, you're kind of going against physics. How are you doing this?
The other thing I see is I don't see anybody out there that has a friend, not read a testimony online, but has a friend that bought anybody's mask, LED mask, and actually used it, say, 4 to 5 days a week, and saw a reduction in wrinkles in within 8 weeks or something. That's pretty much the FDA test, is 8 weeks of 5 times a week. And I'd really be interested to hear that, because I know these class action lawsuit firms were going after this mask area, and interesting to see if people actually do come across somebody that actually got benefits from it.
It is, because that's the realm. I mean, there's red lights popular across, whether it's they have the ones where you put your on your head, but for the mask, I feel a lot of females, that's their part of the routine, that they do the red light mask at night. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear how did it work? What are their thoughts? Did it not work? Did they spend money and they're doing this every single night maybe for them, it could be placebo, but did something actually change for the price? I mean, some of these masks are they're expensive, rightfully, because you need to have the red lights. I'm sure it's not cheap, but are they buying products that actually don't really do what they're saying?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Where can people find you guys, LightStim? Social media, website, where can they find you?
I can go to our website, lightstim.com, LIGHTSTIM. That stands for using light to stimulate cells, basically. And I think we've got a 10% discount going with your podcast.
Yep. All listeners, 10%. They have products. I mean, there's light therapy for wrinkles?
Yeah. Wrinkles, acne, pain. There's handhelds. There's larger panels, both some that could be used at home, some that are professional. Our LED bed, and I think we did the 10% across the board, even our LED bed, I think.
That's awesome. And then the recovery loop, you're going to have the recovery loop out. Athletes, people who are maybe competing in sports or anything, or if they're just looking at something simple to recover, this is jumping in the game here. This is going to be the game changer. If there's one of these people that you haven't heard of red light therapy and you've thought about it, well, here you go. Here's how to recover quick. And the same goes when we talked about testosterone. Good nutrition, good exercise routine, plus the red light, we can get you back. I'm sure Saquon wasn't just, hey, I'm going to sit there and do the red light and just eat crap. No, he was doing everything possible to get back on the field. That's how people need to model their recovery after.
You see that guy in person, and he's short. His thighs are this bigger.
He's massive.
It's awesome.
Well, Steve, we appreciate you coming on. I'm going to hit stop now, and then it'll down.
Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie here from Think Fitness Life. Our entire careers have been dedicated to fitness, particularly how the mind helps the body. We've been around gyms and nutrition strategies for 25 plus years collectively, and nothing harms or helps better than your own mind, untrained or trained. Pushing beyond your limits, overcoming whatever's thrown your way, and making the decision to show up day in and day out as a lifestyle takes more soul than sand. What I mean by that is when you can get your mindset and heart leading you consistently in the direction of your goals and dreams, well, it's just a matter of time before you have the performance, physique, or quality of life you're yearning for. See, your thoughts will stem from your beliefs, which will then lead you to action, which develop into your behavior and ultimately lead you to results. It's really that simple. Our process takes time and it takes open communication. It's amazing what pops up along the fitness journey to betterment, and we can be there every step of the way. To learn more or apply for coaching, visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com. Start recreating your life today.